What's up, y'all? In this video, I'll go over the basics of navigating and editing on the step sequencer of the Roland P-6. Things like recording the sequence or how to edit the steps, and then other useful tips like how to copy and paste steps and how to move the sequence data from one pad to another. There's a lot to cover, so let's check it out. Before getting into editing sequences, let's go over how to add notes to the sequence. There are two ways to add notes. You can draw them in by selecting the sample pad you want to add to the sequence, and then pressing one of the 16 note buttons at the bottom. Or you can use real-time recording and press the pads or keyboard notes as the pattern plays. You just have to enable the recording by pressing the record button. You can see which steps have notes on them by checking for steps that are lit up. Each pad has its own sequencer lane where you can record notes for that pad into the steps. Steps can also have more than one note recorded on them by using the keyboard mode, which lets you play the sample chromatically, or play slices if you have the chop mode enabled for the pad. You can also have one note across multiple steps. This is called a tied note, which the sequencer will hold until it reaches the final step. You really only need something like this if you're using gate mode on the pad, since the last step the note is on is when the note will release. So this note I held down for 2 steps, and then this note it looks like I held down for 7 steps. So you may notice that when you real-time record a sequence using one-shot samples, some of the notes you play get recorded across multiple steps. If you're not quick about releasing the note button or pad, then the sequencer will capture those inputs as tied notes. So you can hear the 2 notes sound the exact same because gate mode's not activated. This one is held for 5 steps, but this one is just held for 1 step. So ideally all of your one-shot samples would look like this, in 1 step, so that it's easier to adjust the parameters for them. So I recommend trying to let go of the pad quickly when you're playing back your sample in real-time recording, so you don't end up with a long string of filled up steps on the sequence. It's much easier to edit the steps of your non-gated samples when you have specific steps you can see. So for instance, if I wanted to delete this step, I'd only need to press 1 button. But if I wanted to delete this step, I would need to go through and delete each one. So it just makes it easier to manage all the steps on the sequence. Each step with a note also stores parameters for those notes. Basic things like the note number and velocity, but also some other useful data like microtiming and probability. To see and edit the parameters, hold the step button down, then press the granular button to cycle through and edit values on that step. So for example, the kick that I have on this step, I can move closer to the snare drum and reduce the volume of it so it sounds more like a ghost note. Velocity is good for ghost notes or for using on your hi-hat track to increase and decrease the levels to give it more of a humanized feel. The microtiming parameter is also useful for getting things off the grid and giving you more swing in your sequence. The probability parameter is also an interesting tool. You can use it to create these conditional triggers where the note will only play on certain times when the pattern loops. So 1 of 2 means it'll play on the first time, but not the second time. So definitely experiment with those. If you're working with a slice sample that has more than 12 slices, it's good to learn how the note numbers relate to the slices. So on the bottom of the P6, there are 13 note buttons. 12 of them are in the octave for the keyboard page you're currently on. So if you're on the starting page, then these will be C4 to B4, and then this last C button is the next octave up, so C5. And when you press the octave plus button, it shows you the notes for the next page. So these are C5 through B5, and then C6 is at the end. And you can press the octave minus button to move down in the octaves. And the plus and minus buttons will be lit up differently depending on what page you're on. So this is all good to know because if you use the step edit shortcut, which is the step button and the granular button, to see the note number for your slice, you can quickly navigate to the keyboard page to play the same slice. So this note is G5, so I know that it's on the second page because it's 4 plus 1, and that it's the G key. And this one is A sharp 5, so it's on the second page as well. So up until this point, we've just been editing steps that have a single note recorded to them. But when you have steps that have multiple notes on them, you can edit each individual note by using the step selection menu. To get to the step selection mode, press record while the sequencer is not playing. And also make sure that you don't have keyboard mode enabled. Now you can scroll through the steps using the value knob, and the number of the step will show up on the display. And you'll also hear the notes that are recorded on that step. So once you've got the step that you want to edit selected, you can press the keyboard button to see what notes are on that step. If you see any note buttons lit up, that means those notes are recorded on the step. If it's a brightly lit up button, that means the recorded note is on the keyboard page you're on. If the button is dimly lit, that means the recorded note is on a different keyboard page, but the note letter is correct. So these are both on the correct page. This is the snare slice, and this is the hi-hat slice. So to edit the parameters of a specific note on the step, get to the keyboard page that has the note on it brightly lit up. Then hold the note button down and press the granular button to cycle through the parameters. So the snare has a micro timing of 16, and the hi-hat has a micro timing of 25, but I could move the hi-hat even further up and reduce the volume of it. And that won't change the parameters on the snare, which is still at 100, and the timing is still at 16. And the reason why this is so important is because if I edited those parameters from this page, it would change the parameters on both of the notes, so they wouldn't have different micro timings and different velocity. And here are some other useful tips and shortcuts for editing sequences. The first is copying and pasting steps. So to do that, hold the step down, then hold Shift and press play. So you should see the copy text after doing that. And then to paste the step you have copied, hold the step button where you want to paste it to, and then use the same shortcut as before, which is holding Shift and pressing play. And it's worth noting that once you paste a step, it removes the copied step from the copy buffer, so you would need to copy that original step again if you wanted to paste it somewhere else. The next tip is duplicating a pattern, which is another useful sequencing tool. The duplicate function will take the full length of your pattern and all the steps you've recorded, and then make an exact copy of that sequence in the next set of steps. So it would turn a 16-step pattern into a 32-step one, or a 32-step pattern into a 64-step one. So you can duplicate a pattern by holding the Shift button and then pressing play. And then turn the encoder knob until you see the duplicate option, and then press enter. And now the pattern will be twice as long. So this pattern was originally 16 steps, but now it's 32. And the last tip is copying the sequence from one pad to another. You may get to a point later in your arrangement where you want to rearrange or swap the sounds on your pads. The P-6 has a shortcut for exchanging sounds, but that doesn't actually copy the sequence data, but there is a shortcut for that. So first I recommend making a copy of your pattern, so if you make a mistake when copying the sequence data, you have a backup. So to copy the pattern, hold Shift and then press play. And turn the encoder knob until you see the pattern text, and then select the pattern that you want to paste it to, and press enter. And then make sure you load the new pattern so your old one's still backed up. So if you want to copy the sequence of a pad, you select the pad and then hold Shift and press play. And then you turn the encoder until it says part and press enter. So now the sequence for that pad will be saved in the copy buffer, and then you select the pad you want to paste it to, and use the same shortcut. Although since we're still in the menu, I can just press enter. So now the sequence data is the same for both of these pads, but this one doesn't have the sample. So I can copy the sample by holding the pad down, and then holding Shift and pressing copy, and then selecting the pad that I want to paste it to. And so now both pads have the sequence and the sample. So I can delete the sample from the first one, and clear the pattern data by holding Shift and then pressing the C note that has the pad text underneath it. So that works if the pad you're pasting it to has no sequence data, but if you need to swap the sequence between two pads, you'll actually need to copy and paste the sequence from one of the pads to a third pad to temporarily store it. So for this beat, I have the main sample chops on pad 1, and then pad 2 has this choir melodic layer, and then pad 3 has the bass. But I usually like having the bass on pad 2. So if I want to swap the sequences and samples from pad 2 and 3, I'll need to back up the sequence from one of the pads onto another pad, and then I can start to shift things around. So I'll start by backing up the melodic sample on pad 2. I'll copy the part to pad 4, and then I can also copy the pad to pad 4 as well. So now I can clear it, and then now I'll copy the bass sample from pad 3 to pad 2. And then I'll copy the sequence data as well. And then I'll delete the sample from pad 3 and clear the pattern data. And now I've got the melodic layer on pad 4, which I want to move to pad 3. And then I also need to copy the sequence data as well. And now I can delete the sample from pad 4 and clear the pattern data. So now the bass sample's on 2 and it's been sequenced there, and the melodic sample's on pad 3 and it has the correct sequence as well. So that's just an example of how you can swap two pads that both already have sequences recorded to them. So those are some tips for using the pattern sequencer on the P-6. It's actually quite a powerful sequencer in a small package. It just takes some practice navigating the steps and recording your sequence in a way that's easy to edit. But that does it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.